subscribe and comment. I'd love to hear about what you would like me to create for you, and I'm more than happy to have a chat with you in the comments below. Okay, so love, let's take a deep breath and relax. Have you ever eaten dessert before dinner? Letting a soft sponge sink into your fork while a vanilla buttercream melts in your mouth. Have you ever licked the bowl of the pudding you're making and then you decide that you can't stop licking the bowl, so you put the pudding in the oven and you eat the whole pudding to yourself, and it was meant to be for your family, but you were a little bit naughty and you just forgot yourself. You were just totally in the zone with the pudding. Have you ever eaten cold chocolate straight from the fridge, snapping it through the film shell before it softly melts in your fingers, smooth and creamy on your tongue? Have you ever eaten cake for breakfast? Fluffy layers soaked with sugar and butter, crumbs sticking gently to your fingers. Maybe you need a cup of tea or coffee to eat with your breakfast because the cake is so sweet. Have you ever eaten ice cream straight from the tub, digging your spoon through the frozen swirls of cream and sugar and giving it a jiggle from the side of the tub so it starts to melt a little softly for you, making it pliable so that you can create the big dollops and make a nice big ice cream mountain in your bowl? Have you ever eaten pudding warm when it was meant to be chilled, and the steam lifting as the centre stays thick and silky and indulgent? Have you ever eaten two desserts, one that is creamy and spoonable, and the other is baked and crumbly? You just convinced yourself that they balance each other so well that you couldn't leave one that's uneaten, and you just felt compelled to have them both at the same time. No guilt. You just went with the flow, and you enjoyed every bite. The dopamine was flowing through your brain, and all your problems disappeared. Have you ever eaten someone else's dessert? Having their untouched slice and savouring the forbidden bite. Maybe they left it on the side to eat later, and later never came, and you noticed that they were busy just can't get enough. There's just one dunk after the other, and you just cannot get enough of your biscuits. So you find yourself going through an entire packet. Have you ever eaten dessert just because it was there? Glossy and inviting, just waiting for you to claim it. Have you ever eaten a sticky toffee pudding, breaking through that soft sponge as hot toffee sauce pours down the edges, butter and brown sugar clinging to every bite? Take a deep breath here, my love. Have you ever eaten an apple crumble, spooning through that tender cinnamon apple, that golden crunchy layer topping, and that gooey sugary sauce, and dipping it in some cream or some ice cream? The crumbles next to the apples are nice and gooey inside your mouth. Have you ever eaten a trifle, sliding your spoon through those layers of sponge, those spongy layers that are soaked in sherry, the custard layer, the jelly layer, and then clouds of whipped cream on top, sprinkled with chopped almonds? Have you ever eaten profiteroles, biting through that crisp choux pastry until that sweet cream bursts softly out of the inside? The dark chocolate layer on top giving it that sweet and deep edge, that combination, the differences in textures, the sweet indulgence is just divine. Have you ever eaten bread and butter pudding, with those warm slices of bread soaked in vanilla custard and dotted with raisins, perhaps a little caramelized on top and a little bit crispy? That crispiness, that vanilla custard and the bread with an ice cream or a custard, and the whole thing is just so Moorish. You just cannot stop eating it, and suddenly you realise you've eaten the whole pudding yourself. Have you ever eaten rice pudding, with those creamy grains slowly dissolving on your tongue, with a thick milk of sugar and nutmeg? Have you ever eaten cheesecake, pressing your fork through the smooth, tangy filling and that crumbly biscuit base, saving that richest bite for last? Yes, it's those little zesty bits that are sprinkled on top, those little zesty bits next to the smooth filling, and that little biscuit as well. It just is chef's kiss. Take a deep breath here, my love, and chocolate clinging heavily as it slowly melts in your mouth. Maybe you've had it with banana. Maybe you've had it with fruits or just on toast. Or maybe you've had it on a croissant. But you know that the Nutella makes everything taste better, and you can't help yourself. Maybe you find a biscuit and you dunk it in the Nutella. You just seem to find things that really go well with Nutella, and it doesn't matter because it's just that escape, that dopamine hit. You spoon it into your oatmeal, you stir it into your porridge, and it just melts and makes everything sweet and creamy. And even on toast, it's absolutely divine. Maybe you have your Nutella on pancakes, or you have it on your waffles, or maybe you mix it with your ice cream. Maybe you have a secret jar of Nutella because your kids eat the whole thing in just a day, so you keep a secret jar just for yourself. Have you ever eaten condensed milk straight from the tin? Sticky and syrupy, it's impossibly sweet and very nostalgic and very comforting. Have you ever eaten cookie dough? Soft and buttery with pockets of sugar and chocolate chips. Maybe you stir that cookie dough into your ice cream. Maybe you add some hot chocolate sauce on top and a couple of chopped nuts, and you give it a nice stir, and you give it another stir, and you take that bowl and you pop it into your sofa with your blanket, and you sit there and you eat the whole bowl to yourself, and it's okay. The whole bowl is yours. The dopamine hit is yours. All your worries just drift away. All your worries float off, and you forget yourself, and you can relax. Have you ever eaten a whole bar of chocolate, and instead of snapping the pieces, you just decide that you're not going to chew, you're not going to snap, you're just going to let it melt in your mouth, and you just sit there working with a piece of chocolate melting in your mouth. Nobody knows that you have chocolate in your mouth. Nobody knows you've got a nice big piece of milk chocolate there, just gently melting while you work. You don't have to chew it. It's just there melting. Have you ever eaten dessert in the bath, or your favourite pudding in the bath? You don't want alcohol because that gives you a big headache. You just want a nice big pudding. Hot, stodgy, comforting, just yours in the bath. Maybe you've got some cream, or maybe you've got some marshmallows you sip your hot chocolate. All the time your brain is switching off, it's relaxing, it's daydreaming, and you're just deciding about which pudding dream you're gonna have. Maybe it's a dessert dream. So in the end you decide that you finish your hot chocolate, you snuggle down into your duvet, and your first pudding dream appears. And in your first pudding dream, you're at a big party with friends and family, and there's two tables. There's a table for the main course, the meat, the vegetables and all the savoury foods, and there's a second table with all the puddings and desserts. And in your dream, somehow, nobody notices that you're just stood there helping yourself to the puddings and the desserts at the pudding table. And it's okay. You have the majority of that table of puddings, and no one else bats an eye. In your second pudding dream, you're in a restaurant, and the waiter is bringing you tray after tray of puddings, and your whole table is full of puddings. You share your puddings with your friends, but they say, actually, I don't want any pudding. I think you can have the pudding all to yourself. And then you realise that you're not getting full. You can eat all the pudding you need and you're just not getting full. And so you're there in this pudding dream eating the most indulgent, huge puddings, these mountains of sponges and trifles, cheesecakes and ice creams. And then in your third pudding dream, you're at the supermarket and there's no one there. So you decide to go to the freezer section and you decide that you're going to try all the puddings in the freezer section that you've never tried before. All of the ice creams, all of the fresh trifles, and then you go to the bakery section and you try all the cakes, and you decide that you're going to take some home to try as well, so you put loads in your basket and you take them out to the cashier, but there's no one there. So then you realise, well, actually this is a dream, and so I won't be hurting anyone if I walk out with these desserts. And so you walk out. You've got a whole tray, a whole basket full of desserts, and you take them home. And then you spend the next week or two just trying these different desserts. And that's how you drift off to sleep, dreaming your pudding dreams, dreaming about different varieties and different combinations. All these pudding